Okay, in this short presentation, I'm going to talk about the materials required for the course. As this is a hybrid course and it's probably soon to be an online course entirely, uh, we have slightly different requirements for the types of paint that we're using and also the types of materials we're going to be painting on. So I'll go through that with you. So if you take your list out, you'll notice your list looks something like this. This is the top of the list, and it talks about where you can buy your materials. So KCC Bookstore is an obvious choice. There's a URL here because they'd like you to order online and then go and pick it up. So you can browse through their catalog of supplies, you can place your order, and then they'll tell you when and where to pick it up, and they'll package it all up for you. Alternatively, if they're open, you could go to the UH Bookstore or Hawaiian Graphics on Baratania Street. But you also have the option of going online. There's lots of good online places. They're often more economical in many ways than prices in Hawaii. And if you have a certain minimum order, $45, something like that, you'll often find that they have free postage. And if you have Prime with Amazon, then you know that you have free postage there. Okay, so to start, the brushes. If you have brushes, you can talk to me about what you have and I can have a look and we can go through them. If you don't have any brushes, this is a really good place to start. So generally, brushes for oil and acrylic are long-handled. They're not short-handled. If they're short handles, then they're usually water-based, watercolor. So we're using long-handled oil and acrylic brushes. White Tacklon is this nylon kind of brush, and bristle is what it sounds like. It's actual animal bristle. It comes from hogs. So these are really coarse, stiff, thick, and these are really soft. So with this, when you paint, you get lots of brush marks and you can really see the paint. And here you can also do that, but you also have the option of being super smooth. So given the choice between the two, if you're a total beginner, you might find that this is much more versatile because it's easier to blend and make things soft. This is a little more tricky. This is usually more advanced painters prefer the use of painterly approaches, but it's entirely personal for you. It doesn't matter what you get. I'm going to have you get two sizes of each. Notice that there's two types. There's flats and there's rounds. The rounds are these pointy ones. So rounds make lines and flats will cover large areas. And if you come over here, you'll see the sizes. So get a 10 or a 12, which is the larger ones, or get a 6 or an 8, which is the smaller ones. And I say or because you might have a preference, or you get to the store, they might only have 6s, or they might only have 10s, and it really doesn't matter. And then the rounds, 4s and 2s. Now these numbers relate specifically to this brand, and they don't standardize over different companies. So it's a little hard to tell you exactly. Just don't get something too small or too big, and if you have questions, let me know. And then a 2-inch house painting brush. I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so now we come down to the paints. We're using this brand. It's called Graham. They're oil colors that are very, very good quality at a very, very good price. And all the tubes are going to be these 37 mil tubes, except for the white. The white is going to be the 150 mil tube. What's important with the paints are the names. So alizarin crimson, cadmium red light, any kind of black. There are several blacks. There's ivory black, lamp black, Mars black. It doesn't matter. Just get any kind of black. Burnt sienna, phthalocyanine blue, which we often refer to as phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow light, and cadmium yellow. So if you see a modifier at the end, it tells you that this color is either the light or the dark version. If there's no modifier, it's the middle, it's the medium. So this is really cadmium yellow medium. Now these names are absolutely important when you go and choose your colors. So they don't have this same color. If they don't have alizarin crimson and they only have some bizarre color like quinacridone rose, don't get it. Now you can get it for your own personal use, and you can definitely use it in the class, but these are the colors we're going to need for the color theory portion of the course. And this palette of colors is a really good basic palette, which I'll talk about later, to do most of what we're going to do. Now you can get this in oil or you can get these in acrylics. If you get them in acrylics, the names are pretty much the same, although sometimes cadmium yellow light is sometimes called lemon yellow. So just check with the person at the store about the names. Titanium white is the white we want, and again, we want the larger tube. Now, you don't have to get this brand. You don't have to have grams. You can have any brand you want. But be careful of really, really cheap paints or really, really expensive paints. And that applies really to the brushes also. You can buy a $70 brush, but it's not going to make your painting better than a $10 brush. You could buy, an $80 tube of cadmium red, but it's not going to make you paint any better. On the other hand, you do not want super cheap stuff. Anything that's 99 cents for 10 brushes is just going to drive you nuts, because all the bristles are going to fall out, and you're going to end up throwing it away and buying more brushes anyway, or you'll decide to give up painting because you can't stand it. So don't get the cheap stuff and don't get the expensive stuff, and these are kind of in between. Send me an email if you have any questions about anything. I know sometimes I might go through things pretty quickly. There's no option for you to talk back right now. But if you're confused by anything, please just reach out and let me know. Canvases, these normally we would be making our own in the studio, but because the class has switched to online, I'm going to let you buy them already made. And what I mean by already made is there's a piece of canvas that's wrapped around a wooden frame, and then it's primered. It's sealed with this white paint called gesso. And that paint acts like a barrier between the paint we put on and the raw canvas that we see. So we would, like I said, we would normally make these. We're not going to make them. You can buy them. If you want to make them, you can, if you know how to do that. And there's plenty of videos online if you wanted to research that. But you have the option of buying them pre-made. You can get them anywhere you want. I would say that Ben Franklin's is not the best place to buy art supplies in Hawaii. It's very expensive, except for one thing, and that's pre-stretched canvas. I've been here for 20 years, and for some reason they've had a sale, 40% off pre-stretched canvas for the last 20 years. So it's actually a good place to get your pre-stretched canvas. And so what we're going to be using is 3 main canvases during the course. The first painting, the second painting, and the third painting, you're going to decide what size based on your choice of subject matter. And we'll talk about that later in the course. So these are the sizes, 20 by 24, 22 by 28. Now, they don't have those sizes exactly. Just get something close. So you got 22 by 24 or 22 by 26. It's the same. It's perfectly fine. Try not to go smaller. And I know you're going to have limitations at home size-wise, but don't come down here and do a 10 by 8 kind of canvas. It's way too small to do anything we're working towards. So those would be the canvases. We come over here to the miscellaneous category. Painter's tape is a good thing to have. It is optional. We can use it to sort of mask off areas. We want to do two studies on one canvas panel, for instance. It's something we use in the classroom a lot because we attach our boards to larger boards, but we're not going to be doing that so much in this course, so it's entirely up to you. Terpenoid, this is what we use to clean and thin out oil paints. So if you're going to be painting in acrylic, you don't need to get this. If you're painting in oils, you're going to need to get this. What you don't want to get is turpentine. Turpentine, A, is much more expensive, and B, the fumes are actually toxic. Terpenoid is safe, relatively. Don't drink it, and don't set it on fire. So as long as you're careful with it, like all of these things, if you eat these paints, you will die, but I don't really imagine it's something you want to do. So, there are risks to the materials, but you just need to be smart about it. What you want to avoid with Terpenoid is the Weber's version of a turpentine substitute, is their natural version. Everybody, it's a good idea to be eco and friendly and looking after the environment, but this stuff is just not good. It's temperamental. I've seen lots of batches of it where it gets sticky or it gets clumpy, and it just kind of contaminates your paint. You can get it if you want, if you feel better about it. But just know that it does have a history of being a little kind of temperamental and a bit of a problem. If, on the other hand, sorry, thought I was going to acrylics there. All right, so here are the canvas boards or chipboard. So normally in a class we would buy these boards, and they're about 33 inches by 20 inches, something like that. And we would paint them white with gesso, and then we would cut them, and we'd have small panels like this that we can use. Since we don't have use of the classrooms and the materials, you have the option of just buying canvas panels already made, already prepared with gesso. These are what we're going to do lots of small studies on. All right, so I've got down here, roughly 12 by 16. We're going to need about 10 of them, maybe 8, I don't know, somewhere around there. If you want to just get, cardboard or hardboard or pressed chipboard and make your own, you could paint white house paint on them. You could put acrylic. It really doesn't matter. These are going to be throwaway studies. We're just going to do stuff. We're going to practice. We're going to go through quickly. And then we'll take all our skills that we're learning here and bring it over to our canvas. So you have a couple of options there. It's entirely up to you. If you do get this, then you are going to have to primer it. Like I said, house paint could work, but it's better to have white gesso, which is really just a more inexpensive acrylic white paint. And you put maybe 2 coats on there so you don't see the brown coming through. Let it dry fully and then cut it into smaller panels. And again, that size would be 12 by 16 or anywhere around there. 10 by 13 is fine. It doesn't really matter. Okay, for oil painters, you're also going to need this. It's called a painting medium. It's called liquid. I'll talk about it later in the course. It's what we use to achieve certain effects and certain consistencies of paint. If you are an acrylic painter, you're going to need this. So don't get it if you're oil. This is called a retarding medium, and what it does is it slows down the drying of acrylics. Now, acrylics versus oils, which one do you want to go with? There are pros and cons of each. Acrylics are easy to clean. Acrylics are relatively inexpensive in terms of all the materials you need. But acrylics dry really fast. Now, depending on the style of painter you are, that could be good or bad. But this class really isn't about style of painter yet. We want to try to achieve certain effects. So if it's drying quickly, it's going to be hard to blend and to create transitions and things like that. So what you want to do is you add some of this to your paint, and the retarding medium slows down, it retards the drying of the acrylic paint. Oil paint, on the other hand, is usually more expensive because you have to buy all these other things with it. And it's solvent-based, so you can't clean it with water, and you need some Terpenoid to clean it. But the advantage of oil paint is that it dries so slow that you can do all sorts of things with it. It's very forgiving. All right, so again, that's your choice. If you're going to go acrylic, you're definitely going to want to get some retarding medium. Palettes, the things you mix your paints on. You have a lot of options here. You can go to the traditional artist palette. They come in wood, they come in plastic, they come in glass, they come in all sorts of things. It's entirely up to you. If you do get wood, you have to seal it with oil. Mineral oil is the best to use. So you have to buy some of that. So maybe also primer. You can take acrylic primer and put it on. But what happens with the wood is it just tends to absorb the oil out of the paint a lot, and it takes a while for it to build up a resistant surface. So that's why you got to do something to it. An easier option is to get a plastic one, and they can be this shape. They can be rectangular shapes. Glass is nice because it's easy to clean, but it's heavy, and if you drop it, you've got a mess. Another easy option is palette paper. This is just a pad of basically wax paper. You put your paint on, you do your mixing, your painting, and then you peel it up when it's all dry and you throw it in the garbage and you're done with it. All right. And I'm going to talk later in the course about solvents and recycling and how not to put stuff down the drain in terms of disposing of our materials. But right now I'm just going to go through the list. One thing you want to avoid is any kind of palette that looks like this. These little kind of reserves and places for putting paint in. These are for water, for inks, watercolors. They're not for oils. So don't buy anything that looks like this, all right? What we want is a large, flat surface, because we'll mix our orange and then we'll add some yellow. All of a sudden you'll see colors are spreading out everywhere, and we can't do that in this tiny little area. And then finally, palette knives. You'll see these in lots of art stores. People use these to mix paints. I personally don't. It's optional. I encourage you to experiment and try as many different things as you want. I find they get in the way. They make you too finicky of an artist. You're like mixing everything into these perfect uniform colors, and then you find out you don't have more, so you got to add. So I don't know. You can do it if you want. I think it's best to avoid it. There's many, many styles and ways of teaching how to use these materials, and I opt for something that's quick, something that's easy, and gets you painting. If you spend too much time on your materials, I think you're missing the wood for the trees. So what I have here is a basic list to get you started. But by all means, add things, add new colors, add different types of brushes, and try them out. Experiment. But if you don't do that and you have this, you will have enough for the course. All right, so like I said, send me an email. We can do it through email, do it through discussion, do it through Zoom, whatever, to get you to feel comfortable with the materials you're using. All right.